Welcome back to the deep dive.
Always great to be back.
So today we're diving into some excerpts you sent over
Oh, yeah.
from a University of Baltimore law article,
Okay.
all about Marcus Tullius Cicero.
Oh, Cicero.
Now, this guy was a Roman lawyer
Right.
and philosopher, lived over 2,000 years ago.
Wow.
But his ideas about law and government are still, get this, incredibly relevant today.
Yeah, it really is amazing how someone writing, like way back then,
Right.
during the fall of the Roman Republic, all that chaos
Yeah.
could come up with principles that, well, that basically shaped modern democracy as we know it today.
So our mission today is to uncut those principles and kind of like trace their impact from ancient Rome to all those revolutions that shaped the modern world.
All right.
Now, the article starts by kind of laying out Cicero's core legal and political philosophy.
Okay.
What really struck me was his definition of law
Uh-huh.
as right reason. It's a recta ratio in Latin. Right.
Right.
But it's this idea that laws should be based on something more.
Yeah, more than just the whims of whoever's in power.
Exactly.
That's-
It's got to be more than that.
So it's like, this isn't arbitrary.
Right.
This is,
Grounded in reason, like real justice, fairness.
and that's a powerful idea.
Oh, absolutely.
That we're still debating today.
Definitely.
Makes you wonder if he was thinking about specific laws from his own time that he felt were unjust.
Could be.
But hold on. If law is based on right reason, then where does that reason come from?
Okay, so that's the big question, right? Where's the source?
Yeah.
Is it like some king or emperor dictating what's right?
Yeah.
Not at all. Cicero, he believed that the source of this right reason was nature itself.
Okay.
So like there's a natural order in the universe. And humans are just, by their very nature, tend to live together in a society.
Okay.
And that society should be governed by laws that reflect this natural order. Okay, so nature's like the foundation.
Exactly.
But what's the goal of all these laws? What's their purpose?
That's easy. For Cicero, the purpose of law was super clear. To serve the res publica, which basically, translates to public affairs or the common good.
All right.
Laws should benefit everybody in society, not just the lucky few.
So this idea that laws should promote the general welfare
Yes.
is like a cornerstone
Oh,
of
absolutely.
modern legal systems.
It is.
That's a pretty radical idea for his time, don't you think?
Oh, totally. Think about it. He's challenging the entire power structure of ancient Rome.
Right.
He was not afraid to call out people who abused their power.
Right.
So he measured, laws made by the state, what we call positive law, against this higher standard, natural justice.
So it's not enough for like a king
No.
or a senate to just like make a law.
Exactly. It doesn't automatically make it just or right.
It's got to align with these higher principles.
It has to. Natural law, the common good.
That's a powerful concept.
It is a powerful concept.
So he had this ideal vision
Yeah.
of law based on reason and the common good.
Mm-hmm.
But how did he envision this playing out
Okay.
in a real government? Like, were there any actual systems that he thought could work?
Yes, there were. He was a big proponent of what he called a mixed government.
What's that?
All right, so we're not talking about cocktails here, although that does sound good. This is about blending different forms of government.
Okay.
You got your monarchy, your aristocracy, and get this, democracy.
Democracy in ancient Rome.
Yeah. It might seem surprising, but
Yeah.
Cicero wasn't alone in seeing the value of, incorporating some elements of democracy,
Okay.
but his vision was particularly influential.
So he wasn't just theorizing. He was...
Oh, no, he was practical.
Oh.
He actually endorsed specific institutions
Oh, wow.
that could make this mixed government work. For example, he believed in having a Congress
Okay.
or comitia to represent the people.
Uh-huh.
Then you've got a Senate composed of, experienced, respected citizens who could provide wisdom and stability.
Interesting. So the Senate's there to provide a check, maybe, on the popular rule.
And to prevent any one person or group from grabbing all the power, he advocated for checks and balances. He knew that power corrupts. And to preserve liberty, you got to distribute power among different branches.
It's like he's looking ahead to modern constitutions.
Right.
With their separation of powers and checks and balances.
Yeah.
So did his contemporaries appreciate this?
It's a great question. A lot of people admired his vision of an ideal state, but some, folks like the Roman historian Tacitus believed that creating a lasting republic was kind of a fantasy.
More of a fantasy than a realistic goal.
Yeah, maybe.
So his ideas were groundbreaking.
They were.
A little too idealistic for some. A little too ahead of their time.
Perhaps. Yeah. But even though the Roman Republic ultimately fell, Cicero's ideas survived, largely thanks to a rather surprising figure, St. Augustine.
St. Augustine.
Yeah.
The Christian theologian.
Yeah, that's the one.
Why would he care about the ideas of a pagan Roman philosopher?
Yeah, it seems a little strange. But in his famous work, City of God, Augustine actually went deep, critiquing Cicero's ideas.
So by arguing against Cicero...
I know, right?
He accidentally kept them alive.
Yeah, it's a twist.
So if Cicero's ideas were seen as impractical during this early Christian era, when did they make a comeback?
Good question. So fast forward to the 17th and 18th centuries. And we see figures like Patrick Henry, fiery orator of the American Revolution. And he was drawing inspiration from Cicero's speeches.
Really?
Yeah, speeches against tyranny. Particularly,
An example.
The Catiline orations and the Philippics.
Wait, so you're saying Patrick Henry's give me liberty or give me death?
Oh, yeah.
Had roots in ancient Rome?
Absolutely. The spirit of defiance, against tyranny echoes in those words, straight out of Cicero's playbook.
Wow.
But Henry wasn't alone. Oh, no. This article you sent lists a whole bunch of revolutionary lawyers from different countries who saw themselves as following Cicero, challenging arbitrary power, in the name of the people.
That's incredible. So how'd they use his ideas?
Well, they drew inspiration from his concept of natural law, this idea that there are universal principles of justice that transcend any ruler's whims. They also embraced limited government checks and balances, to prevent tyranny.
It's amazing to think that ideas from 2,000 years ago could have such a lasting impact.
I know, it's crazy.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, how did these ideas about challenging power make their way from ancient Rome to the modern world?
Well, a key figure in this revival is none other than Niccolo Machiavelli.
Machiavelli.
I know.
Isn't he the...
Yeah. He's often associated with the prince.
Yeah, more cynical.
Yeah, advocating for rulers to maintain power by any means.
Right, by any means necessary.
But he was also deeply fascinated by republics, like well-functioning republics.
So there's more to Machiavelli.
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole other side to him.
Than just the prince.
Exactly.
He wasn't just advocating for ruthless dictators.
No. In his discourses on Livy, he digs deep into the Roman Republic, analyzing, its successes, its failures, and you guessed it, drawing heavily on Cicero.
So a balanced government, civic virtue?
Yes. All of that.
Wow, history is full of surprises.
It is.
But before we jump into Machiavelli's Republican ideas, let's talk about those who oppose Cicero's vision.
Oh, yeah.
The article mentions some pretty fierce critics.
Yeah, there were some who weren't too keen on limited government and all that.
So who are we talking about here?
Well, one of the big names was Thomas Hobbes, English philosopher.
Hobbes, right.
He argued that, all this emphasis on individual liberty, challenging authority, could lead to chaos. Instability.
He was thinking of the English Civil War, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. All that bloodshed.
Right.
He was known for Leviathan. You know that one?
Yeah, where he argues for the all-powerful sovereign.
Yes. To keep society from basically, falling apart.
So it was like Cicero, team people power.
Versus Hobbes, team strongman.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah.
Hobbes saw classical learning as a recipe for disaster.
Pretty much. All that questioning authority, emphasis on liberty.
Dangerous stuff.
Yeah, he thought an absolute monarch, strong, no messing around was the only way to maintain order, security.
So Cicero, champion of limited government, individual rights, versus Hobbes, who believed in one big, all-powerful ruler.
Yeah, it was a real clash of ideologies.
Were there any other critics of Cicero?
There were. Another one was Robert Filmer, English writer. He wrote Patriarcha.
Okay.
Defending, you guessed it, absolute monarchy.
But based on the divine right of kings, I'm guessing.
You got it. So Hobbes argued for absolute power based on, the need for order.
Right.
Filmer goes for religious authority.
Right.
Tracing the king's power all the way back to Adam.
So challenging the king's authority wasn't just a political act.
Nope.
It's a sin against God.
Pretty much. Totally different worldview from Cicero.
So on one hand, you have Cicero's vision,
Mm-hmm.
this just and balanced republic,
Right.
versus those who believed in strong, unchecked power,
Exactly.
whether they justify it through reason or religion.
Yeah, yeah.
And this sets the stage
Oh, yeah.
for some major upheavals,
It does.
especially in the centuries that followed. I'm thinking the English Revolution.
Ah, yes. The English Revolution.
Yeah.
1688, also known as the Glorious Revolution.
So a pivotal moment
Oh, absolutely. Pivotal.
in the evolution of constitutional government.
It was a showdown. Those who supported the absolute power of the monarchy
Okay.
versus those who wanted a limited monarchy.
Right, with more protections for individual rights.
You got it.
So was this a win for Team Cicero?
Well, it was a step in the right direction,
Okay.
but not a total victory. England didn't become a full-blown republic.
Right.
They kept a king,
Mm-hmm.
but his power was limited by Parliament, and they had a Bill of Rights.
So a mixed bag
Yeah, a compromise.
between the old and the new.
You got it.
But it sounds like Cicero's ideas did play a role.
They did, pushing things towards liberty, limits on power.
But what about the American colonies? They were, steeped in English law and tradition,
Right.
but they went all the way, declaring independence.
They did?
Did Cicero have any influence on that?
Oh, he did. The American colonists, especially the lawyers,
Of course.
were all about that classical learning.
So they weren't just winging it.
No, no, no.
They had a plan.
They had a plan. They were looking back centuries of political thought. Wow.
All the way back to ancient Rome.
So their own deep dive, kind of,
Yeah, pretty much.
into the ideas of Cicero.
Exactly. And these ideas shaped their understanding of their situation.
Okay.
They saw the British government's actions as a violation of natural law
Okay.
and a threat to their liberties.
So they weren't just rebelling against taxes or unfair laws.
Oh,
This was bigger than that.
much bigger. They were rebelling against a system they thought was fundamentally unjust.
Incompatible with their rights as free citizens.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
And when it came time to create their own governments,
Yeah.
they looked to Cicero.
So those seeds planted by Cicero
Yeah.
in ancient Rome
Mm-hmm.
blossomed into a new nation,
They did.
founded on liberty, self-government.
Powerful stuff.
It's an amazing story.
It is.
But I'm curious, how did those principles actually get put into practice? Did
Good.
the American founders create a system that really mirrored Cicero's vision of a mixed government?
Good question. And what about France? They had their own revolution around the same time.
They did, and that's a whole other story.
Okay, so we'll have to save those stories for part 2
Wait,
of our deep dive.
Really?
Stay tuned, folks.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Last time, we were tracing the influence of Cicero's ideas from ancient Rome to the American Revolution.
Right.
And we kind of left off with the question
Yeah.
of whether the American founders actually created a system that embodied his vision
Yeah.
of a mixed government, right?
Right. And what role, if any, his ideas played in the French Revolution?
Exactly. So picking up where we left off, the American founders, deeply influenced by Cicero,
Yeah.
crafted a system that really reflected his principles in a very real way. They established a Senate to represent the states,
Yes.
a House of Representatives to reflect the people's will,
Right.
and a president, an elected executive,
Yeah.
separate from the legislature.
Interesting.
So distinct branches of government, each with their own powers.
And responsibilities.
That's familiar.
Yeah, it does.
That's the essence of Cicero's mixed government, a key element of checks and balances.
Right.
The American founders, they knew that concentrating too much power in one person, one branch, that's a recipe for tyranny.
Exactly.
So they divided power, made sure each branch could check the others.
That's fascinating.
It is.
So the American system, with its emphasis on separation of powers and checks and balances, has roots in the writings of a Roman lawyer
I know, right?
from over 2,000 years ago.
It's crazy.
Who would have thought?
And they knew it too. The founders, they saw themselves as like building on that legacy.
Of the Roman Republic.
Exactly. Striving to avoid the pitfalls, create a system that would safeguard liberty for generations.
So the American Revolution
Yeah.
can be seen as like a successful attempt
Yeah.
to put Cicero's ideas into practice.
I think so, yeah.
What about the French Revolution?
Ah, yes. The French Revolution.
Overthrowing a monarchy.
Yeah.
Trying to establish a new form of government.
Right.
Did Cicero play a role in their thinking as well?
Well, the French Revolution was heavily influenced by classical ideas, just like the American one.
Okay.
However, the French, they drew inspiration not only from Cicero and the Roman Republic, but also from ancient Sparta.
Sparta.
Yeah.
The city-state famous for its warriors. And, strict social order.
That's the one. Sparta and Athens, they were often seen as contrasting models in ancient Greece.
Right?
Athens, known for its democracy, intellectual pursuits.
Right.
Sparta, well, they were all about military strength.
Okay.
And unwavering dedication to the common good.
So the French revolutionaries were exploring different models, trying to find the best fit for their goals.
Exactly.
What was it about Sparta that appealed to them?
Well, think about it. The French Revolution was a time of crazy upheaval, social change.
Right, right.
They wanted to create a society based on equality, fraternity, liberty. And they saw in Sparta this model, this society where citizens were willing to sacrifice their own interests for the good of the whole.
So the appeal of Sparta was its emphasis on civic virtue and the common good.
Yeah, pretty much.
Were there any specific figures who championed this Spartan ideal?
Well, there were two key figures, Gabriel Bonneau de Mamei and Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
Okay, Rousseau, he's the guy who wrote the Social Contract.
Yes, that's him. The Social Contract, all about the general will.
The general will of the people.
Exactly. His ideas resonated deeply with the revolutionaries.
So individuals surrendering some of their rights to the general will.
Right, to create a truly just and equitable society.
So we've got Cicero's Roman Republic model on one side.
Emphasizing balanced government.
Checks and balances. And then this Spartan ideal on the other.
Civic virtue. The common good.
How did these competing visions play out when the French were actually drafting their constitution?
Well, the French revolutionaries were deeply committed to certain principles. Principles that aligned with Cicero's philosophy.
Okay.
You know, the rule of law. Imperium legum. Popular sovereignty. Imperium populi. Natural justice. Aetius naturale.
Wait. Hold on a second. Those Latin terms are a bit much.
Oh, sorry, right.
For us non-Latin speakers.
So, imperium legum, that basically means the rule of law.
Right.
Everyone is subject to the law, even those in power.
Got it.
Imperium populi translates to the power of the people.
Okay.
Government gets its legitimacy from the consent of the governed.
All right.
And aetius naturale refers to natural law, inherent rights, principles of justice. Those exist no matter what human laws or institutions say.
Okay, so even though they were drawing inspiration from Sparta, they were still incorporating these fundamental Ciceronian principles.
They were.
So did they actually go for a mixed government?
Well, that's where things get interesting. The French, they were hesitant about having a Senate.
Really?
Yeah. Figures like Monopoly and Turgot.
Okay.
Argued for simpler assemblies.
They thought a Senate would be too cumbersome.
Too slow, yeah. Slowing down the will of the people.
So a potential roadblock to enacting reforms.
Exactly. They wanted a system that was more responsive to the general will, like Rousseau talked about.
Right. This was a time of massive upheaval.
Exactly. It wasn't neat and tidy like the American Revolution.
Right. This was chaotic, radical.
They wanted a clean break from the past.
So did they end up with a Senate or not?
Well, the first French Constitution, adopted in 1791, no Senate.
Okay.
They went with a single National Assembly and kept the king, but with limited power. More like a figurehead.
So trying to strike a balance?
Yeah.
Did it bring them stability?
Well, it didn't last very long.
Oh, no.
The monarchy couldn't hold on in this revolutionary climate.
Right.
And those tensions between the radicals and the moderates, they just intensified.
Right.
Leading to, well, the Reign of Terror.
The Reign of Terror. That's when things really went off the rails. It was a dark time. Robespierre, the guillotine, mass executions.
Revolutions can have dark sides.
They can, even when launched with the best intentions.
So were they still drawing on Sparta during this period?
Ironically, yes. They saw themselves as upholding virtue, civic duty.
The Spartan ideals?
Exactly. But their interpretation was extreme.
They thought purging the nation was the only way?
They did. Anyone they deemed corrupt, not revolutionary enough.
So they took that Spartan ideal of a morally pure citizenry to a terrifying extreme.
You could say that. And it backfired. The terror led to revulsion, a backlash against the very ideals they claimed to represent.
So when they drafted a new constitution in 1795, the Constitution of the Year 3, they tried to create a more balanced system.
They did. And guess what they included?
Let me guess. A Senate.
You got it.
Yeah.
They finally realized that concentrating power in one assembly,
even if it's elected, can be just as dangerous as a monarch.
Precisely. They came to appreciate Cicero's arguments, dividing power, checks and balances.
So they came full circle.
They did.
Back to those principles they initially rejected.
Exactly. They even created a plural executive, kind of like the Roman consuls, further distributing power.
But then a new figure emerges.
Oh, yeah.
Napoleon Bonaparte.
Napoleon, the ambitious general.
Who crowned himself emperor.
I knew he had to show up somewhere in this story.
Right. So from republic to empire, just like Rome.
It is a familiar pattern, isn't it?
What happened to the Senate?
You might be surprised. He kept it. He did. And even a tribunate, supposed to represent the people.
Okay.
But they were powerless, just rubber stamping his decisions.
So using the forms of republican government to mask his authoritarian ambitions.
Yeah, pretty much. Playing the part, but acting like a dictator.
Kind of like Augustus Caesar in Rome.
Exactly. Augustus, after the Civil War, he restored order.
Right.
He kept the Senate, other institutions,
okay,
but concentrated power in his own hands.
Transforming the republic into an empire.
A classic power grab.
So these patterns repeat throughout history.
They do.
Even figures like Napoleon and Augustus were still grappling with Cicero's legacy.
It's like his ideas cast a long shadow.
Even on those who tried to undermine them.
His vision of a just and balanced republic, it just kept haunting the imaginations of those who aspired to power.
Wow. So we've traced Cicero's influence through the American and French revolutions.
And even into Napoleon's rise.
What's the takeaway here?
I think the big takeaway is that Cicero's ideas about law, justice, government, they weren't just abstract theories.
Right.
They were potent forces shaping human events.
Inspired revolutions.
They did.
Informed constitutions.
Shaped debates about power and how to structure a just society.
So even though he lived so long ago, his ideas still resonate with us today.
They do. They speak to our desire for liberty, justice, good government.
His vision of a balanced republic, where power is shared, citizens have a voice.
Right.
And laws are grounded in reason and justice.
That's a powerful vision.
It continues to inspire.
It does.
Okay, we've covered a lot. From ancient Rome to Napoleon.
We have.
But the story doesn't end there.
Oh, no. There are more twists and turns ahead.
We'll explore how Cicero's ideas continue to shape modern law and government.
We'll look at other figures who, built on his legacy, faced new challenges.
Stay tuned for part 3 of the deep dive,
where we'll explore the lasting impact of Cicero's ideas on the world we live in today.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been on this incredible journey tracing the impact of Cicero's ideas.
From ancient Rome all the way to Napoleon.
And it's mind-blowing how these ideas have just echoed through the centuries.
They really have. And as we move into the 18th and 19th centuries, we see how they continued to shape things, the development of modern law, government, influencing, key thinkers who grappled with their own time's challenges.
You mentioned last time more twists and turns to come.
Oh,
where we go next in this deep dive?
Well, let's talk about Montesquieu.
Montesquieu, okay.
French philosopher, lived in the 18th century. He was fascinated by the English system of government.
Oh, right. England and their glorious revolution.
Exactly. They established a constitutional monarchy.
Right. They still had a king.
They did.
But Parliament had a lot more power.
They did. A good balance of power, compared to absolute monarchy.
Right.
And Montesquieu, he saw something really remarkable in that.
What's that?
An embodiment of some of Cicero's key principles. He believed that the English system, with its division of power, the monarch, Parliament, the courts, it was a brilliant example of how to, prevent tyranny, protect individual liberty.
Wait, so Montesquieu is the one who came up with separation of powers?
That's him. He gets credit for formalizing the concept.
Executive, legislative, judicial, like we have here.
Yes, exactly that. He laid it all out in his book, The Spirit of the Laws.
Oh, okay.
But it's important to remember, he wasn't working in a vacuum.
Right.
This wasn't something brand new.
Okay.
He was building on a long tradition.
Of political thought.
Yeah, going all the way back to ancient Greece and Rome. And Cicero's ideas, well, they played a huge role.
So even though Montesquieu was looking at England, he was still channeling Cicero. from ancient Rome.
It was.
It's like these ideas, they just travel through time.
I know, right?
Inspiring thinkers.
Shaping political systems.
And Montesquieu's ideas, they had a big impact on the American founders.
Oh, they did. When they were designing their own system, they drew heavily on Montesquieu. Separation of powers. It's right there in the Constitution.
It's amazing. This one idea from ancient Rome.
I know, right?
Became a cornerstone of modern democracy.
It did.
Didn't Montesquieu also write about law and religion?
He did. And here again, we see Cicero's influence. Remember how Cicero argued that religion should serve the state?
Yeah, not the other way around.
Exactly. He wasn't into theocracy or, religious leaders dictating laws.
He thought those two spheres should be separate.
He did, for a stable and just society.
Right.
And Montesquieu, he agreed. He argued that keeping religious institutions subordinate to the public good, that was essential.
Okay.
So that superstition wouldn't undermine the state.
So both Cicero and Montesquieu were basically advocating for separation of church and state.
You got it. This idea that religious freedom is vital, sure, but religion shouldn't be used to make laws or policies.
And that principle,
yeah,
which we kind of take for granted today in a lot of democracies,
yeah,
has roots going way back.
Way back to those classical thinkers.
Okay, so we've got Cicero influencing Montesquieu, who then influenced the American founders. But what about the American Revolution itself? How did Cicero's ideas play out in that fight for independence?
The American colonists, especially the thinkers among them.
The lawyers, the intellectuals.
Exactly. They were steeped in classical learning, devouring Cicero, other writers who championed Republican ideals.
So when they started pushing back against British rule, it wasn't just a reaction to taxes.
No. This was bigger.
Okay.
They were drawing on a whole tradition, limited government, individual liberty, the right to resist tyranny.
So they saw their struggle connected to those ancient struggles for liberty.
They did. They even used Roman pseudonyms like Cato and Brutus in their writings, speeches, invoking that spirit of resistance.
It's like they were intentionally channeling the Roman Republic.
They were. And this classical inspiration, it wasn't just in their words. It was in how they structured their new government. Remember Cicero and his mixed government?
Senate, assembly, checks and balances.
You got it. And those ideas were influential, even if things weren't always perfect in practice.
Right.
So the American founders, drawing on Cicero, Montesquieu, they created a system that truly embodied these principles. They had a Senate, a House of Representatives, president.
So they took Cicero's blueprint.
They did.
And adapted it.
Creating a system designed to prevent tyranny, protect liberty. It's a remarkable story, the power of these ideas.
Yeah, it is.
And while the American experiment has had its ups and downs,
of course,
it stands as a testament to Cicero's vision
of a just and equitable society.
That's it.
So after all this, why should we care about some Roman lawyer from 2,000 years ago?
It's a good question. Cicero's legacy, I think, is a reminder. The ideas we debate today.
Yeah, justice, liberty, all of that.
They're not new. They've been debated for centuries.
Okay.
And by understanding where they come from, those historical roots, we can better appreciate the complexities of our own systems and the challenges we face.
So it's like he's given us this lens to view our own political world, to see those echoes of ancient debates in our own struggles.
That's it. And his story reminds us that this pursuit of justice, liberty, it's not over. It's a conversation across generations. And Cicero helped shape that conversation.
Wow. That's a powerful thought.
It is, isn't it?
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Cicero's legacy.
It's been a pleasure.
Who knew ancient Rome could be so relevant to our lives today?
You never know where you'll find inspiration. Keep exploring, keep asking questions.